What is up, you guys? Welcome or welcome back to yet another video. So in today's video, we're going to go over some news with Carlsbad. So you all know me with my main channel here. I like to go over some Carlsbad updates on what's going on around the city. So in this article, there are going to be three people that have spoken to CBS8, and one of them is actually one of my good friends of mine. So let's take a look at the article, and we're also going to watch the two videos that are shown in this article. So sit back, relax, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. So yeah, this is another episode of What is New with Carlsbad. What is new with Carlsbad? So some updates on what's going on. And I'm also one of my friends. I'll give you her name, Vicky Syage. She is an amazing human being. I've known her for quite some time now, and she is just spot on in everything she says. And every time she goes to COSD board meeting, every single time she goes to a Carlsbad City Council meeting, she speaks the truth of what's going on. And she is one of the three Carlsbad residents that live in and around that area of the McClellan-Palomar Airport. And these three lovely individuals, lovely in a good way, actually, that are fed up with what's going on. And I'm glad that it's being addressed. I'm glad that they were able to speak to a local news station about it. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. If you haven't already, this is subscribe button, hit that like button, comment down below your thoughts comment your thoughts down below. Only if you're a Carlsbad resident. If you're not a Carlsbad resident, then you have no say in what's going on around here. So again, I mean, we're going to also watch the two videos within this article. So thank you so much, CBS8 News, for San Diego CBS8 for taking a look at this and speaking with three residents that live around that area. You guys rock. So I'm glad it's getting out there, and I'm glad it's, I'm glad the word's getting out there, and I'm glad these three individuals are, doing everything they can to, among others, to get this to stop, this problem to stop. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of, over the next, I don't know how many more years or how many more meetings in general, I don't know, but this being talked about on city council. And so yeah, and because it involves schools, I think this is also going to be talked about as an agenda item as well with COSD board meetings, considering the fact that there's new schools around there in the last 15 years being built in and around that area. And so, because it involves schools as well, I'm pretty sure there's going to be some meetings about that as well. And that, parents and just residents in general that have kids, grandkids, students that live in and around that area might speak about it at school board meetings coming up soon. Hopefully they do, because students these days, quite honestly, with the real quick here, all those students that that were speaking with the about the diversity, equity, inclusion plan, all those students that got up and spoke for it was the DEIB was like, wow, like, the students at all of these schools, all these Carlsbad schools, they're our future. They're our future. So I just want to say, you kids rock. You seriously do. You guys are doing an amazing job, and it really does, melt our hearts in a good way, a positive way. Seeing you kids just get up and speak at school board meetings, and actually city council meetings too. Like, like so many students getting up to speak against Melanie Burkholder's proposals of those disgusting flags in July. I mean, come on, that was freaking awesome. So congratulations to all those students that got up and spoke as well, because our students are our future. So I don't know what's going on here. I don't know if the internet's being weird or what's going on. Anyways, let's just try to, power through this real quick. So Carlsbad residents call for changes at McClellan-Palomar Airport to address flight and curfew violations. Residents say pilots are flying fast at low altitudes over schools and homes without consequence and fail to observe any curfew for outgoing or inbound flights. So before we even get into it, let's just go ahead and watch the video. It's mute in case there's a ad. There might be an ad. I don't know. It's acting weird. So while that's doing its thing, we're gonna just read on while it's loading. Carlsbad, California. This is the Wild West. Pilots can fly in and out whenever they want. There are no consequences for deviating from the flight paths. There are no consequences from taking off and landing whenever pilots please, said Vicky Syage, one of the thousands of Carlsbad residents who live within miles of McClellan-Palomar Airport, and say the airport and the pilots are buzzing neighborhoods and schools below, altering dedicated flight paths, and ignoring voluntary noise curfews with no enforcement from the Federal Aviation Administration or the County of San Diego. I have no idea what's going on right now with this. It's being really bizarre. What if I don't know what if I do this? I don't know what's going on. But while it's loading, we'll continue reading. Syage, president of the Carlsbad. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with this. We already read this, right? Yeah. So Syage, president of the Citizens for a Friendly Airport, as well as homeowners from 16 housing communities within a 3-mile radius of the airport, have banded together in hopes of ramping up enforcement at the regional county-owned airport. Over the course of the past 8 years, the group says the county and Federal Aviation Administration have allowed pilots to fly untethered from any rules without any fear of enforcement. That has left many residents fearful that a tragedy can occur not over the dedicated flight path, which runs due west above Palomar Airport Road, out over the ocean before banking north or south, depending on the plane's destination, but over the homes, schools, and playgrounds in the communities near the airport. We have multiple new schools, said Syage. We probably have about 5,000 to 7,000 students that are in the new deviated flight paths, and those schools are relatively new, all built in the last 15 years. The community has grown around the airport, and these deviations are unsafe. So this is the McClellan-Palomar Airport voluntary noise abatement procedures. So I don't know if you guys can read all that right there, but it says here pattern altitude. So twin jet, about 2,000 MSL. I don't know what MSL stands for, but if you do, then I don't know. Then you know what I'm talking about. I'm right here. Single engine, 1,500 MSO, and using helicopters. Is it helos or helicopters? I don't know if that says like if helos are short for helicopters or I don't know. 1,000 MSL. Here we go. So here is just watch the whole video. It's only 4.5 minutes long.
Oh, too low, too late, and too often. People who have lived around McClellan-Palomar Airport in Carlsbad have had enough. They say pilots are breaking their voluntary rules for flight without any consequences. And when they turned to the airport, county, and FAA for help, they found everyone pointing fingers at each other. We're working for you to get some answers. McClellan-Palomar Airport has been around for almost 65 years.
Something seemed to have flipped about 10 years ago, 8 to 10 years ago, and it got worse during COVID.
People who live nearby say this is not what they bought into.
Well, the airport was not this kind of airport when we decided to live here.
And they aren't happy about the changes they're seeing.
So I used to take my kids and we'd watch them take off and land. Little kids like to watch airplanes, and we'd go eat lunch at the tower. That's not what this airport is. So it's almost like a bait and switch.
This is the problem that
Dom, Frank, and Vicky tell us the changes include flights veering off the recommended flight path, which means more noise and pollution over neighborhoods, but also potential danger for newer schools in the area.
They were not in the flight path when they were planned and built. Flight path has changed.
They also say more luxury jets are taking off overnight during so-called quiet hours.
It is the Wild West. There's no TSA, no security. They can come and go when they want, how they want, and where they want.
When they brought their concerns forward, they got stuck in a bureaucratic Bermuda Triangle.
well, we can only do this, and the FAA is responsible for that. And then the FAA says the county's responsible for it.
One big challenge, the actual rules at the airport.
We have this thing called the voluntary noise abatement program, but there's no consequences when they don't follow it.
So we reached out to the county, which owns the airport, and asked why there is not a mandatory curfew. The county responded saying they don't make the rules, but are doing their best. Quote, although the FAA has exclusive jurisdiction over aircraft noise from aircraft in flight, the county regularly encourages aircraft pilots to adhere to the operating hours. So we turned to the FAA, which told us the noise isn't their problem, pointing the finger right back at the county. Quote, the FAA does not have the legal authority to force pilots to comply with the county's voluntary noise abatement program. The county is responsible for monitoring and investigating pilots who do not comply with the voluntary noise program. The FAA does not implement curfews. That didn't sound great to Congressman Mike Levin. The airport sits in his 49th district.
But I'll just be candid with you. The FAA needs to do more. And we're going to hold them accountable. We're going to make sure they're being responsive to address the real concerns of our constituents.
Levin is part of the Quiet Skies Caucus in Congress, which is focused on aircraft noise issues, but we haven't seen any concrete action yet. Dom, Vicky, and Frank say they aren't asking for the world. They just don't think that the interests of a few with deep pockets should outweigh the health and welfare of a community with deep roots.
So we're not trying to shut things down. We're just trying to get the airport to be a friendly neighbor to the community.
The county says the FAA denied requests for a mandatory curfew twice, the second as recently as 2021. Then the FAA asked the county, it says, to go through a longer process to show that a mandatory curfew was necessary. So instead, the county is no longer pursuing the matter. The county also says that over the last 5 years, flight totals are down and that flights during quiet hours were very low during their last quarter. For example, in May, there were about 2 of those flights a night. We're still looking into the flight path issues, and we'll be following up on that and with what's next with the quiet hours issues, and have much more details in the web version of this story. You can find it at cbs8.com.
So, sorry, tickle in my throat. So, it was denied a few times. The county's not doing anything about it. Well, so how many meetings is it going to take with city council? How many meetings is it going to take with CUSD? With the folks, with the students and the families that live in around that area to be able to live normally again, right? to live without hearing and seeing these planes fly in and around their homes and in and around their schools and parks, right? Like, how many meetings is it going to take? So it's more of a Carlsbad issue, not a, county-wide. I would say it's more of a FAA and Carlsbad issue, more so than a San Diego County issue, because it's in Carlsbad, right? I'm just saying. So we're going to read this, right? I'm going to read this to you guys right here. So the yellow is noise sensitive area, which is all right here. The red arrows is suggested arrival track. So all these red arrows here. The blue arrows, which is only like 4 or 5, is the suggested departure track. And then the green is touch and go patterns, which there's only 1. So it's credit County of San Diego map of flight pattern at McClellan-Palomar Airport. It says Carlsbad resident Dom Betro has turned into a regular plane spotter whose hobby more like a full-time job of watching airplanes take off from his home. My house sits in the path of the takeoff flight pattern, said Betro. I look out my window and I see 9 out of 10 of them deviate when they go south and cut the turn short and come over all the houses from Poinsettia Avenue to Palomar Airport Road. We have these flights sometimes within 500 to 1,000 feet off. So it says here we have these flights sometimes within 500 to 1,000 feet of playgrounds and schools where kids are outside playing, and there's documented evidence that it is not a good thing. So because Dom Betro is basically explaining, hey, look, that there's video evidence that this is going on, right? Because it's turned into such a hobby of his, like a full-time job, basically, to where he just sees this every single day, and it's going closer and closer and closer to these schools, to these playgrounds where there's kids playing. I mean, because there's video evidence of it. Like, I mean, right? So let's continue reading. So I'm pretty sure within the next city council meeting and the next school board meeting that Dom Betro is going to provide that video evidence to them, which I think is a good thing to show, hey, look, there's video evidence of you private pilots doing this, right? There's video evidence of it. You're flying too close to schools. You're flying too close to playgrounds. You're flying too close to our homes, right? So, continue reading. In addition to the safety concerns, residents say that allowing pilots to deviate from the flight path results in more noise for surrounding neighborhoods. But that is not all. Residents also say the County of San Diego, the airport owner and operator, has declined to implement a mandatory curfew on incoming and outgoing flights from the Carlsbad Airport. Similar to those at the San Diego International, John Wayne Airport in Orange County, Long Beach, Ontario, among other California airports. Instead, the county has implemented what is known as a voluntary noise abatement curfew, which requests that pilots do not take off or land between the hours of 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. So after 7 a.m. until 10 p.m., they can do what they want, right? But between 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., they also have to be at home and in bed, right? So, or be at home, right? So it says here, according to the numbers obtained by CBSA, Palomar Airport, less than 1% of all flights in out of McClellan-Palomar Airport occur during voluntary quiet hours for jets from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. and for propeller planes from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. So again, with propeller planes, there's this 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. So they can do what they want between 6 a.m. and midnight. But after that, till 6 a.m., they have to abide by the rules, right? So anyway, it says, however, considering that there are approximately 11,580 flights per month, that's a lot. If you really think about it, that's a lot. And an average of 80.6 after-hour flights per month, that results in nearly 3 flights per day during the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., depending on the type of plane. So here's the annual takeoff and landing counts, actual and projected. I mean, this is, so dating all the way back, it says from 2003. And then there's the other separate but related issue of public safety from pilots, jet setting, dedicated flights, paths, and veering over neighborhoods around the airport. Holding those pilots accountable, state residents, is easier said than done. We get a lot of bureaucratic answers, just your basic cover your ass type responses from the Federal Aviation Administration and the County of San Diego, says resident Don Betro, who has advocated for a quieter airport for several years. Everybody points the finger at somebody else. They tell us we can only do this, and the FAA is responsible for that, added Betro. When push comes to shove, they tell us that flight patterns and minding voluntary curfews is at the pilot's discretion in case there are safety issues at hand. What? Anyway, let's continue reading. It is the back and forth that Betro, Syage, and thousands of others say has landed them into a constant state of dead airspace. For that reason, he and others have urged Congressman Mike Levin to get involved and encourage the Federal Aviation Administration to better oversight the airport. I will be candid with you, the FAA needs to do more, Congressman Levin told CBS8. We are going to hold them accountable and make sure they're being responsible to address the real concerns of our constituents. Because here's the thing, I'm going to make it short real quick here before we continue on. Because there's another video to be played, right? Something happened in San Marcos recently. So basically, residents are coming out and saying, hey, look, this has become a problem. Betro is saying, hey, look, there's video, there's clear-cut evidence, right? Video evidence of them doing this on a daily basis, on a nightly basis. And, they're not using the dedicated flight paths. They're deviating from it. And they're not deviating from it for safety issues. They're doing that because they want to, not because they have to, right? So all these, like Vicky Syage, Don Betro, and thousands of the residents are coming out and saying, hey, look, that they've been dealing with this for several years, that there's been nothing been done. Can we do something now? It's 2020 and it's almost 2024. Something needs to be done, right? So, and residents wouldn't have, and the fact that, Don Betro has been saying, hey, look, he's been advocating for this, for a quieter, airport neighborhood for the last several years. He's been advocating for this for several years now. Really does speak volumes, and really it does make it very concerning. This is a concerning problem. I don't live obviously in that area. I live in a different part of Carlsbad, but I can tell you that, reading all this, seeing the look on their faces, hearing what they have to say about it, you can really hear the struggle in their voices, right? And in their faces as well. They're fed up with this. Let's continue reading. Because again, and also they wouldn't have been coming on saying, look, this is a problem, this is get done. What can we get done, right? What needs to, how long is it going to take till this gets done, right? So they wouldn't be coming out and saying all this unless it wasn't a problem, right? It is a problem. The congressman said, let's continue reading. The congressman said that he had directed his staff to work with the FAA to make sure that pilots were informed about the voluntary noise program and the need to follow the dedicated flight patterns and comply with takeoff times and landings, while applauding the countless hours that residents have put into their efforts to report low flying planes and takeoff and landing times. Congressman Levin says that they should not be responsible for monitoring the airport so closely, and that the FAA should be enforcing these issues already. One thing's for sure, it shouldn't be up to the citizens to enforce safety rules. It really needs to be the FAA's responsibility, Levin told CBS 8. The FAA needs to be accountable. Exactly, right? It's very true. The Federal Aviation Administration definitely needs to be held accountable for what they're doing, what they're not doing, right? It also says here, but Levin says the County of San Diego also needs to act to ensure the safety of nearby residents. Exactly. There's simply no excuse. Some of these pilots that are endangering residents, even school kids, need to be held to an account, and the county has to protect public safety. It should be pretty simple. We need to be making sure that we're holding anybody accountable who's not flying at sufficient altitude, and we need to be sending that signal to our pilots that they need to be flying in accordance with the rules. And what I'm going to say real quick is that, here's my thing. Here's my take on this. Because in order to own your own plane and in order to be a pilot of your own plane, you need to be filthy rich, right? So here's my take on this. Here's my suggestion that actually shouldn't be a suggestion, but it needs to happen. Something that these deep pocket residents, these Carlsbad residents that have ginormous deep ass pockets, if you feel the need to go somewhere, fly somewhere, I don't care if it's a day, I don't care if it's a few days, I don't care if it's a week, 2 weeks, whatever. If you're going to be flying somewhere, and that is somewhere that is without, it's not during the day, it's between 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., like within those hours, and you have to, for whatever reason, have to go to one of those times or come back one of those times, you have deep pockets. Go buy a ticket and stand in line at the airport, at San Diego Airport or at LA Airport or whatever. It's that simple. Because these people, these residents, that's fine. You want to have your own plane. You want to be able to leave and come back whenever you please without the hassle. Okay, we get it, whatever, but you have deep pockets. Since you guys don't want to follow the rules, go buy a plane ticket and only fly your planes if you plan on flying during the day, and then plan on coming back during the day when you come back to Carlsbad. When you leave Carlsbad and when you come back to Carlsbad, only fly your own little plane during the day. Okay? And then again, if you want to leave somewhere during the curfew hours, then go buy a ticket. It's not that hard. You guys have super deep pockets. You know what I'm saying? Because in order to own a plane, and especially in order to be your own pilot of your plane, you have to be filthy freaking rich. I'm saying it's not a suggestion at this point. It is a must that you have to do that. And that is something I'm going to bring forth to City Council when it is on an agenda item. When next time this is part of an agenda item, I'm going to bring that up. Because again, if you own since you guys own a plane, you have to be filthy rich, right? So buy a ticket if you have to or want to, for whatever reason, fly during curfew hours. Okay, fine. No one's gonna judge you. Fine, right? But those residents that live in around those areas, those students, those kids that live in around those areas, and go to those parks in and around those areas, go to schools in around those areas, you are endangering their safety. You're endangering everybody's safety around there by flying too close to schools, too close to parks, too close to homes. You're endangering their safety. So that's fine. You want to fly, you want to go fly like during curfew hours? Fine. Go buy a ticket. It's not that hard. I'm serious. And it's important that that's talked about. So anyway, let's continue reading on. That's what I'm going to mention at the next city council meeting that this is talked about. Because I'm being super serious about this. Like, I don't think that's ever been said. But all these, Carlsbad residents that have their own planes and they're their own pilots, and you guys have a lot of money. You guys have way more money than the rest of us combined, I would say. Because again, in order to have your own plane, in order to also be your own pilot, you have to be filthy freaking rich. Again, you want to fly during the curfew hours? That's fine. No one's judging you. That's fine. But buy a ticket if you want to do that. Just because you have a lot of money, just because you have deep pockets, it doesn't, and your own plane doesn't mean you can fly whenever you want, wherever you want, wherever you want, whenever you want. Okay? So that needed to be said. All right, let's continue reading this. Levin's comment, and I'm serious. I'm saying it now in this video, and I'm going to say it again. During the next city council meeting about this. Because I'm a concerned citizen. I don't live in that area of Carlsbad, obviously, but I'm saying this as a concerned citizen for everybody else for everybody who lives in that area. Okay, everybody that goes to school in that area, every kid that goes and plays at those parks. I'm a concerned citizen for all of those people. I'm a concerned citizen bringing this forward. So, okay. All right. That need to be said. So, anyways, let's continue reading on. So it says here, Levin's comments and work on behalf of residents confirm that residents have witnessed a back and forth between the county and the FAA as to who is responsible for what. The community is fatigued. They know these complaints go nowhere, said resident Frank Sung, who has filed countless complaints for low and late flying planes. We're not trying to shut things down. We're just trying to get the airport to be a friendly neighbor to the community. Excuse me. Sorry. Added Sung, praise God, we haven't had any crashes. These pilots may be flying 1,000 feet above sea level, but there are some hills around here, and you are only 500 to 700 feet above the homes. That margin to recover from an engine problem is very little. The Federal Aviation Administration versus the County of San Diego. So who does have the authority over McClellan-Palomar and what needs to happen? CBS 8 reached out to the FAA and the County of San Diego in search of answers to the issues of noise and safety issues involving low-flying planes and pilots who decide to deviate from the standard flight paths and fly over neighborhoods and schools. Noise. In terms of the noise, the FAA says it is the county that needs to act and enforce any noise issues. In a statement, a spokesperson told spokesperson for the FAA the heck? Oh, great. Anyway, so it says here, the statement, a spokesperson for the FAA told CBS8, the county of San Diego owns McClellan-Palomar Airport. The FAA does not have the legal authority to force pilots to comply with the county's voluntary noise abatement program. The county is responsible for monitoring and investigating pilots who do not comply with the voluntary noise program. The FAA does not implement curfews. The spokesperson for the Federal Aviation Administration said that in order to implement a mandatory curfew, the county of San Diego needs to formally request that one be put into place, something that the FAA says it has not done. So it's basically, it seems like a back and forth between the FAA and the county of San Diego going back and forth with each other, saying, hey, look, the FAA saying, oh, it's your problem. You tell the McClellan Airport what to do. And then the county of San Diego is telling FAA saying, hey, it's your guys' problem. Tell them what to do. Right? It's a back and forth battle here. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, San Diego County would decide whether to pursue a mandatory curfew. They have not formally requested one. It is not so simple, says the county of San Diego. In fact, a spokesperson tells CBS8 that it requested a mandatory curfew on 2 occasions, most recently in December of 2021, and the FAA encouraged a voluntary noise curfew instead. And while the county spokesperson says it can submit another formal request for a mandatory curfew, a time-consuming and laborious effort that includes the need for a cost-benefit study, among other things, the spokesperson says the county is confident that it will continue to cut down on the noise around the airport. We currently do not plan to change our voluntary program, said the county spokesperson. Since 2000, Palomar Airport has become a quieter airport due to a decrease in airport operations from an average of 205,000 operations in the mid-2000s to 146,000 in 2022. Also, advancements made in aircraft engine designs have contributed to a quieter airport. Well, that is true. Then why are thousands of residents coming out and saying, hey, look, this is actually not quiet, right? It has changed, like Sung said, it has changed over the last 10 years, right? Last 15 years. So I'm on the resident side, not the spokesperson side. I'm not on the side of these, private pilots. I'm on the side of Vicky Syage, Don Betro, and Sung. I'm serious. Both county and FAA, especially because one of them is one of my friends that I've known for a long time now. So, okay. So, both county and FAA officials do agree on one thing: establishing a mandatory curfew is no simple task. That's because in 1990, the U.S. Congress passed a law that made it more difficult for local jurisdictions and airports to implement noise restrictions at airports. The county spokesperson told CBS 8 that is dedicated to keeping noise levels down at the airport and making sure pilots abide by the noise ordinance. Palomar Airport is committed to being a good neighbor and has taken the proactive steps with its flight operations to limit noise, said the spokesperson. Although the FAA has exclusive jurisdiction over aircraft noise from aircraft in flight, the county regularly encourages aircraft pilots to adhere to the operating hours. Low-flying planes. As to low-flying planes and the community's complaints about pilots foregoing the flight pattern, the county says it is the FAA's responsibility to ensure that pilots comply with safety standards. The airport said the county spokesperson has also met with pilots to drive home the requirements for aircraft approaches and takeoffs. The most recent meeting occurred on August 29th when airport and FAA officials met with 60 pilots to discuss flight paths and elevation issues. Palomar Airport regularly asks that aircraft approach the airport at 2,000 feet above the ground within a 3-mile radius to help avoid noise or altitude concerns by the public. So let me read this again. Palomar Airport regularly asks that aircraft approach the airport at 2,000 feet above, 2,000 feet above the ground, within a 3-mile radius to help avoid noise or altitude concerns by the public. Residents such as Vicky Syage want a mandatory curfew and assurances that the pilots who do not fly off course are disciplined, who do fly off course are disciplined in order to keep them and their loved ones safe from a potential tragedy. No one's trying to shut it down, said Syage. We want it to go back and be the airport that was when we all moved here, and this was supposed to be just a small plane airport with flights that flew during daylight hours straight out of the ocean and then turned left or right, not ones go over houses or wake you up in the middle of the night. So let's go ahead and read this, but we're gonna go over more about this, but we're still gonna watch this video because it is in the article, but we'll go more over it in another video. But we're also gonna go over this one as well in the next video as well. Plane crashes in water near South Carlsbad State Beach. But for the last part of this video, we're just gonna watch this and then call it a day with this part of the segment of this as far as the content goes for today's videos.
All right, we are going to start with continuing coverage on a story we first brought to you last night. A small Cessna plane makes an emergency landing in San Marcos, right in the middle of a busy street. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Kirsten Holmes.
And I'm Steve Price. The 4-seater plane made a rough landing around South Rancho Santa Fe Road. And when the plane hit the ground, one of its wings actually snapped off and the plane hit a car. The good news, there were no serious injuries to the people in the car or in the plane, just minor injuries. Tonight, CBS 8's Jasmine Ramirez spoke with a flight instructor about the landing, who says it's a miracle that everyone made it out alive.
This is dash cam video capturing the moment the plane lands near the intersection and glides past cars on the roadway.
He did an amazing job, frankly, on being able to land here on Rancho Santa Fe and avoid all of the homes and structures that are around, and avoided all but one vehicle that had just minor damage.
The pilot told the San Marcos Fire Department that he had engine failure, forcing him to make a quick decision to land the plane in the street, losing a wing in the process.
He did one of two things: either neglected maintenance on the engine, or the airplane was out of fuel, because the wing, at least one wing, was ripped off and no fire. And fuel is carried in the wings.
Robert Katz is a commercial pilot and flight instructor with more than 40 years of experience.
We got our engines back, but I still want to land.
He listened to this conversation between the pilot and air traffic control.
Currently, we're above the clouds. They think I'm Bravo. Okay, Roger. And
Robert says the pilot was not instrument qualified, which means he wasn't trained to fly on top of a solid overcast.
Say that you had like zero control over where he was going to come down because he can't see where to point the airplane.
The pilot and passenger on the plane walked away with no injuries. The FAA is now investigating the emergency landing. Jasmine Ramirez, CBS 8.